Hello everyone, myself Sanat Kumar Swai, Assistant Professor at Vedant Institute of Technology, Bhubaneswar. I hope you are all doing well. In today's class, we'll be discussing about how we are going to overcome various kinds of resistance to change. Okay. In the previous class, we have discussed about organizational change and the implementation, how we are going to implement successfully any kind of organizational change. So in this particular class, we'll be discussing about how we are going to overcome. See, there will be resistance to change. Okay, there is always resistance to change. So how will be able to resist, how you will be able to overcome those resistance to change. Okay, so we'll be going through few slides. We'll also see a few examples. Okay, and how that is important to overcome those resistance. Okay, so let's go. Right. So introduction, definition of resistance to change. What do you mean by resistance to change? Resistance means to resist. Okay, what do you mean by resist? When you don't like something, okay, and you have been forced to do something, so what happens? You have your resistance. You resist that, no, I don't want to do this. Yes or no? So resistance to change means resistance occur when employee or stakeholders oppose or struggles. Okay, when they oppose something, that we are not liking this kind of change and we oppose. Okay, so when there's an opposition, when there's a oppose to any kind of changes, so that is known as resistance to change. Okay, we are resisting to any kind of changes. Okay, now why it is important of addressing this resistance? Because see, if you are not going to if we don't address those kind of resistance, so what happens is that resistance is going to hamper the progress. Okay, and the progress of that organization has been hampered. Next, when see, we want that implementation to happen in a more effective and more mane, speedy way. Okay, so but if there is a resistance, so what happens is that delays the implementation process delays. Okay, and definitely once it gets delayed, that means it's not only about delay process, but it cost delays cost. Okay, and overall productivity is also been hampered. Okay, so that is why if there is any resistance, we have to address those resistance in a fast I mean fast track way. We cannot I mean uh, linger it. Okay, because that is gonna have further delays, okay, in this implementation process, and subsequently our productivity also is going to be affected. Okay, now if we are looking at the Indian context, what happens that we have cultural nuances. Okay, we have a diverse workforce. Yeah, and also we have socio-economic factors which plays very important role, particularly in the Indian context when we are implementing change and when there is a resistance. Because see, uh, as because India is a culturally diversified country. Okay, a lot of people from different diverse backgrounds, cultural backgrounds are living in our country. Okay, and also in any organization, you'll see that there is a diversified workforce. Okay, so these all contributes to various kinds of important which plays a very significant role while addressing this resistance of change. Okay, now reasons of resistance to change. Okay, why do we resist to change? Okay, if I ask you a personal question, do you like change? Most of the people, they will say yes, we like change. But if you ask, I mean, if you introspect yourself, do we actually like change? Most of the people will say that no, we don't like change, because we like as the way we are. Why there is a resistance to change? Because the first is fear of the unknown. We don't know about the future. If we know about the future, then we may not resist to change. But as because the future is uncertain, okay, so that is why we don't. Unknown is always been feared of. Okay. Next, mistrust in leadership. If we have that much trust in leadership, that we may not resist to any kind of change. But as because sometimes we may not have that trust, there is a lack of trust in the leadership, so that is why we change. we resist for any kind of change, because if we are not resisting, that may have a negative impact on us in the future. Okay. Next, loss of control. Sometimes it does happen that if we do not resist to change, then we may lose our control. Okay. So as because we don't want to lose our control, that is why we resist to certain changes. Okay. Apart from that, we have cultural barriers. Okay. There are certain barriers, cultural barriers. We don't want to bring those or break those cultural barriers for any kind of change. Okay. And we want to be with those cultures, our cultural barriers. We don't want to break those cultural barriers. So that is why also we normally resist to change. Okay. Apart from that, lack of communication, though the change is a positive process that is going to actually going to help the organization, that is actually going to help the benefit the employees, but as because there is a lack of communication, there's no transparency. Okay. We resist. Okay. So these are the few reasons for which resistance has been taken. I mean, we don't resist. I mean, we resist for any kind of changes. Okay. If you take an example, particularly in Indian context, you will see that in Gujarat, in the state of Gujarat, okay, there was a manufacturing unit. Okay. So they registered. Okay. They registered for when there was an automation. See, there are two ways. One is automation and one is manual. So all the employees, they were working manually, and when there was an automation process, okay, they I mean they registered to those change because they fear that they are going to lose their job. Okay. These are the few reasons for the resistance to change. Okay. Next, what are the strategies? Now if we want to overcome the resistance for any kind of change, we have to have certain strategies. Okay. So what are the strategies which we need to implement in our organization? The first one is effective communication. Okay. What do you mean by effective communication? That we have to have a proper communication with our teammate, with our staff, with our colleagues. Okay. With the employees. Okay. Why? Because you see the transparency about the purpose and benefit of the change. So um, that has to be cleared, that why we are going to implement those change, what is the purpose of that change, what benefit we are going to gain out of the change. So that has to be very much clear, that has to be very much transparent, and then only that becomes effective communication and resistance becomes very less. So this is one of the first way to overcome resistance. Okay. So for example, Tata Motors transition to electric vehicle involved open forums to address employee concerns. So they see Tata Motors. Okay. They had a very much effective communication. They had open forums that you can discuss, you can address whatever employees problems are there, and then we are going to solve it. We're going to make you understand that why exactly we are going to transit to our electrical section segment. Okay. So that becomes very much effective in overcoming resistance. Next is participation and involvement. You have to have a lot of participation. You have to involve all your employees in the decision making process. You cannot ignore your employees while making any kind of decision. Okay. That has to be an informed decision making. Okay. So for example, uh, when Infosys, they had a agile transformation. Okay. So what happened, they increased their team. Okay. What kind of input they're going to give on their agile transformation. Okay. So that becomes very much easier to overcome any kind of resistance. Okay. So participation and involvement is also one of the most important strategy to overcome any kind of resistance. Okay. Next, training and support. Okay. What do you mean by training and support? You have to train your employees, you have to give full support to your employees. Okay. See, when you are preparing your employees for any kind of new I mean challenging role, for a new role, so you have to upgrade them, you have to give them required training, required support has to be given. Okay. So if we talk about an example, so Wipro's digital transformation is included in comprehensive enhancement program. So what happened when Wipro, they had a transition process in the digital transformation. So they had an entire package of comprehensive skill development programs. With that, they try to equip, they try to upgrade the skills which are required for this digital transformation among the in their employees. Okay, so this training and support is one of the most important strategy to overcome any kind of change. uh, Building trust and relationship. Okay, building trust and relationship, you have to have trust building initiatives has to be taken into consideration. Okay, how? Conduct town hall and question and answer session. Okay, you have to have question and answer. It's not like um, uh, you can suppress the questions and you're not going to answer. No, you have to. You are bound to answer all the questions of your employees. Okay, so that what happens, that builds up the trust. Okay, and once the trust has been built up, then definitely we can overcome any kind of resistance in change. Okay, leadership role. Okay, so what happens that leadership, what role leadership is going to play? Leadership is going to play about the employees benefit, employees welfare. Okay, what kind of benefits and welfare you are going to initiative has to be taken. Okay, so whether you are committed to your employees benefits and welfare. So you have to set an example, you have to give certain examples through and demonstration through proper examples. Okay, that yes, our leadership role is committed to our employees welfare. Okay, so that is also one of the important aspect of building trust in relationship. Now if we talk an example, Mahindra and Mahindra cultural alignment workshop during the rural development project. So when they had a rural development project, okay, so they had a cultural alignment. I mean, they had a lot of trust building initiative. They took a lot of trust building initiative. Okay, with their culture. I mean, they had an alignment with their culture, and then their rural development project picked up. Okay, so this is very much important in building trust and relationship when in resisting any kind of change. Okay. Okay, gradual implementation. So what do you mean by gradual implementation? Gradual implementations are like you have to have phased project. Okay, when there is a change, okay, you have to have certain phased. Okay, it's not like you are going to implement all of a sudden. A phased project. Okay, so introduce changes incrementally, gradually, and gradually you increase your change process. Okay, because people may not be able to adapt to those changes all of a sudden. Okay, so certain changes has to be taken in a step by step process. Okay, next, pilot project. Okay, what do you mean by pilot project? Pilot project means like it has been implemented in a small. See, when if there is any new scientific innovation, what happens? That has been tested in a laboratory. Okay, before it comes out to the market. So similarly, those projects has to be tested in a smaller group. Okay, whether that has been uh, uh, that changes is going to have a positive impact. Okay, and then that has been implemented in a full scale. Okay, for example, SBI's digital banking services were first launched in the metropolitan branches before nationwide rollout. So what happens is that when SBI had their digital banking services been rolled out nationwide, they implemented those in the metropolitan branches, like the big branches. Okay, so whether they will be able to cope up with those digital services or not. So once that became successful, then they had a rollout in nationwide. Okay, so this is gradual implementation. Emphasizing benefits. So what is the emphasizing benefit? You have to highlight. Okay, so what is once those implementation, I mean, uh, change has been implemented. So what happened that what will be your personal benefit and what will be your organizational benefit? What organization is going to benefit? How you will be personally benefit? So you have to give certain fact-based data, fact-based stories. Okay, yes, in certain organization they have implemented this and they have achieved this. So if you are going to implement this, we're going to achieve this and this. Okay, and moreover you will be also get benefited apart from the organization. Okay, so you have to prove them, you have to show them with certain data, certain proved examples. Okay, success stories. Okay, so for example, like Flipkart. Okay, so what happened? So when Flipkart switched to AI powered logistic. Okay, AI, artificial intelligence empowered logistics. So they that improved their efficiency. Okay, which was well communicated to stakeholders. So the people who are all the stakeholders of that Flipkart company, that was been communicated to them in a more transparent way. So that became easier for Flipkart to implement those changes and resist any kind of change. Okay, overcome any kind of resistance. Leveraging change agents. So how you're going to leverage a change agent? So you have to get certain influencer. Okay. Within your team, you will see that there are a lot of people who can actually become influencer, who can actually influence the audience, who can actually influence the entire population. Okay, for any kind of change. Okay. So you have to identify those influential who can influence for any kind of change. Okay. In case of Reliance Jio, they use the senior manager, okay, to take the initiatives like change initiatives, particularly in the rural sectors, okay, rural offices. Addressing emotional responses. See what happens that when there is a uh, change, okay, certain emotion comes into play. For example, let's say uh, how I would say there is um, uh, a railway line is going to pass through your community, or maybe a nation project is national interest project comes up near to your home, and you are being forced out of your home. So definitely you will have emotional responses. Not only you, but all the community members who are living in that particular area. Okay. So what happens that when you are going to this kind of situation arises, what happens? You have to acknowledge their concern. You have to have empathy towards their fear. I mean, I'm going to lose my house. What's I may not get a house tomorrow. I may not get my compensation. I may not get adequate compensation tomorrow. It does happen. So we have emotional responses. Emotional concerns are there, and we have to address those concerns. We have to acknowledge that yes, we are empathetic towards your concern, right? Next, provide counseling. Okay, you have to provide counseling. Sometimes it does happen that people get a lot of stressed. They get stressed out when there is this kinds of emotional response comes up. So you have to be prepared to provide any sort of counseling if required. Stress management sessions. Okay. Now, for example, TCS provided wellness program during its global expansion transition. So what happened? They had a full package of wellness program when they had an expansion transition process. Who? TCS, Tata Consultancy Services. Right. Right. So with this, we have come to the end of the slide. Okay. So if we are going to summarize it, okay, I'm not going to have a lot of conclusion or a lot of summary, but I've just summarized in just 2 points that what exactly, I mean, how we are going to overcome to those resistance of change. See what happens. Resistance to change is natural but manageable. It's not like it cannot be managed. It is natural. See, when there is a change, there will be a lot of resistance, but we can manage it. Okay. Next, a structured, empathetic approach leads to smoother transition. So, if there is the entire approach is in a structured way, it is in an empathetic way, then there is a smooth transition. You may not face a lot of resistance. Okay. Right. So, see, change is inevitable, but growth is optional. Change is inevitable. We cannot stop those changes. But growth is optional. Very important. Whether you are growing or not with that change, that is optional. But that's up to you. So we have to use effective strategies to ensure that the organization grows with change. Just bringing out the change and not growing is worthless. So, as because change is inevitable, that has to come, that will come. With those change, we have to grow because that is optional. Okay, right. So with this, I remain. Thank you very much. I believe we have covered all the sections in overcoming the resistance to change. Uh, I hope you have a good day. Thank you very much.